So let's start with a bang. Number one, you're not ready to move to Idaho if you don't own a gun. Now, if you think that guns are something that only criminals own, then yeah, you might not fit in here in the Gem State. In fact, if you think that, you probably forgot that the Second Amendment of 1791 actually gives the right to bear arms to every citizen of the United States. The fact of the matter is, guns do protect, and I was thinking of this a while back. If the attack of October 7th in Israel last year had happened here in Idaho, there's a lot of ammunition that I would have unloaded on those terrorists before they got to my family. And I'm sure that all my neighbors would have unloaded all their ammunition as well, because a lot of people around here are packing heat. Idahoans love guns. They use them for sport, they use them for recreation, they use them responsibly. And if you're over 18, you don't need a special permit to carry a concealed weapon either in the city or outside of the city. And my suspicion is that if you who's watching this video right now are thinking about moving to Idaho, you probably own a gun too. Number two, you might not be ready to move to Idaho if you honk at people when they do something that you don't like. Now, I was driving down Eagle Road the other day, 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm going to meet somebody for coffee, and all of a sudden I hear somebody honking behind me. So I look at my rear view mirror and there's a guy behind me. I thought, there's no way he was honking at me. I didn't do anything. Then I hear him honking again. I thought, who is this guy? Then he drives past me honking and then he flips me off. And I was like, what happened? I didn't even do anything. Maybe I was driving 2 miles under the speed limit. I don't know. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get a good look at his license plate, but I'm sure the guy was from All joking aside, no, he probably was from No, in all seriousness, the reason I mention this is that it is a relatively rare thing here. People actually are friendly when they drive, and the very fact that I mentioned this story means that it's something that doesn't happen all the time. Really, people do allow you to pull out if you're coming in from a side street. They give you the right of way, and it really is the exception to the rule to see people driving fast, furious, and crazy. Number three, you think ranked choice voting is a good idea. Now, if you have no idea what ranked choice voting is, that's great. But if you think it's a good idea, then you're gonna be unhappy here. Now, what is ranked choice voting? In a normal system of voting, usually one person gets one vote. Whoever gets the most votes, that candidate is elected. Not so in the system of ranked choice voting. Under that system, a candidate can only be elected if he gets more than 50% of the votes. So what happens
is when you go to vote for a candidate, you don't just vote for one person, you actually rank all of your choices. And so what happens is when it comes to tally the votes, they count up all of the first choice votes, and if nobody got more than 50% of the votes, then what they do is they move to a second round.
Sound confusing? Yes, it is. But Idaho voted on this system of voting just in this last round of elections, and it was overwhelmingly rejected. And that's a good thing because there were literally millions of dollars that were poured in from outside money, outside liberal organizations that tried to push ranked choice voting on Idaho. And the reason is that ranked choice voting is sort of a backdoor way of getting more liberal candidates into office. Idahoans rejected it definitively. 70% of the people voted against it. And I think the other 30% that voted for it had their head in the sand. Number four, you're not ready to move to Idaho if you never hit the like button on videos you like. All joking aside, if you enjoy this content, tap that like button. That just helps me to know that you're tracking with me. I appreciate that. So number four, for reals, you might not be ready to move to Idaho if you own no Carhartt clothing. Now, I love Carhartt. Carhartt is the American workers brand. It was actually started by a guy from Michigan in 1889 called Hamilton Carhartt. He started the company in order to provide tough, durable clothing for railroad workers. And so he originally made his products out of denim and duck canvas. So for the first 40 years, Carhartt was the American railroad workers brand, but then after the Great Depression, they shifted their focus and started making clothing that was more suitable for ranchers and farmers. Still owned by the Carhartt family today. Now, I don't have any stats relating to Idaho and Carhartt. I did find one stat that was interesting. The one stat is that Alaska actually is the state that buys the most Carhartt clothing, and the reason is because of the oil industry there and the outdoors. So I don't know exactly where Idaho ranks in Carhartt clothing purchases, but we love the outdoors. We got real workers here, and you see Carhartt clothing everywhere. In fact, almost all of the clothing that I own is Carhartt as well. So you see a ton of Carhartt here in Idaho, and if you've never heard of Carhartt, you don't own any Carhartt clothing, you might not be ready to move to our state. Number 5, you might not be ready to move to Idaho if you've never heard of Raul Labrador. Now, no, I'm not talking about the dog. I'm talking about our Attorney General, and he's a powerhouse. Now, have you ever wondered why Idaho very rarely features in the national politics news? Part of the reason is that we don't have that many people. We have 1.9 million people here in Idaho. That means there's only 13 states that have fewer people than we do. And there's only 6 states that have a lower population density than we do. So we have a relatively large land area, relatively small population, so we're not a big powerhouse when it comes to making political news. But where we do actually feature in the national news is when it comes to abortion. And here's where Raul Labrador comes in. Now, he was elected our Attorney General in 2022. He's in favor of repealing Obamacare, in favor of curbing illegal immigration. But he's also very pro-life. He believes that life begins at conception and has been influential in helping to shape the abortion laws that we have here in our state. And just recently, he was in front of the Supreme Court defending our Defense of Life Act. And basically what he was doing is he was arguing in front of the U.S. Supreme Court that our abortion laws do not come at the expense of the life of the mother. Contrary to what you might hear in the national media, our laws do make provisions for abortion when the pregnant mother's life is in danger. So it's not protect the unborn baby at the expense of the life of the mother. We believe that both the mother and the unborn baby should be protected, and doctors are expected to use their best medical judgment in order to preserve the mother's life. But where Raul Labrador has been making some news lately is he was the only Idahoan to be invited to Donald Trump's victory celebration at Mar-a-Lago after his election victory. Now, I heard on the radio that he may actually be in the running for Deputy Attorney General or some other position. So keep your eye on Raul Labrador. I think he's up and coming. He's definitely found favor in the eyes of the Trump administration, and he may get some sort of a position in the Trump administration. And that may help to put Idaho back on the political map. Number 6, you think that it's silly to make a law that explicitly says that non-citizens cannot vote in U.S. elections. Now, there might be 2 reasons that you would say that. Number 1, you might think that it's obvious. We don't need a law that explicitly says that non-citizens can't vote in U.S. elections. I mean, I can't go to Korea and vote for the Korean president, so obviously, non-citizens can't vote in our elections. Second reason you might think it's silly is you might actually think that non-citizens should be able to vote in U.S. elections. I think that if you hold to either one of those positions, you're not on the right track. First of all, if you think that non-U.S. citizens should be able to vote in U.S. elections, you're crazy. I mean, we might as well open the gates and tell all the Iranians to come over to our country and say, why don't you guys decide what you think our country should become? But if you think that it's just so obvious that non-citizens can't vote and therefore we don't actually need a law or amend the Constitution to explicitly say that, I think you're being overly naive. I mean, our country has been so abused over the past several years that if it doesn't explicitly say something, I think you can run into trouble. I mean, just look at what the federal government has done with immigration laws over the past several years. They've simply said, we are not going to enforce federal immigration laws. So Idaho said, We need something at the state level. And so on November 5th, Idaho passed a resolution along with 6 other states to amend our state constitution so that it explicitly says that non-citizens are not allowed to vote in state and local elections. The resolution passed with overwhelming majority, with 65% of the people voting in favor. 7, you're not ready to move to Idaho if you don't know your neighbor. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've had clients tell me that they think Idahoans are super friendly, and I'm not just saying that. Let me read to you an email that a client sent to me just last week. She says, "It's hard to believe it's been over 5 months since we moved here. My goodness, time has flown by. We still have no regrets leaving California and absolutely love Idaho, our home, our neighborhood, our church, and all the people we've met. Our little neighborhood is tight-knit and everyone wants to help each other. It's great." Now, obviously not everyone's perfect. It's not heaven here. But honestly, you'll find that people are friendly here. When you pass somebody on the street, they're gonna look up and they're gonna say hi to you. I've lived in a bunch of different places in the world, and I've lived in places where I feel like everybody's trying to take advantage of everybody else. It's not the case here. Now, let me give you just a little free piece of advice since it's my channel. If you do find that your neighbors are not all bubbly and smiles, just go over and talk to them. Engage in conversation with them. Say, "Hey, how's it going?" And I think you'll find that there is a friendly bone in their body. So if you don't know your neighbor yet, get to know them. And then once you do that, come on over, you can move here too. Number 8, you're concerned about driving conditions in the winter. Now here's a sure sign that you're moving from a sun state. One of the first questions you ask me in our conversation when we talk is, what's it like driving in the winter in Boise? Look, Boise is a city. We have 235,000 people that live here. Meridian has 135,000. Do you really think that 500,000 people are gonna be stuck in their homes every time it snows? We have salt, we have snow removal equipment, we have snow plows. There's nothing to worry about. It's possible that, for the first hour or two on the morning after a huge snow, there might be a bit of a delay, but we get the roads cleared. Occasionally there's a tiny bit of ice, but it's nothing to be concerned about. If after I explain all of that, you're still a little bit concerned, you might not totally be ready to move to Boise. Number 9, your idea of a fun weekend includes the words mall or department stores. Now, I might be stepping on some people's feet here. There might be an Idahoan or two that actually like shopping. I haven't met them yet, but he might exist somewhere. But generally speaking, that's pretty minimal. What people like to do here on the weekend is go outdoors. That's why so many people have campers, or if you're too cheap like me to buy one, you have a tent. People buy homes with RV bays to put their campers in. That's what people like to do. They like to go outdoors. And if you don't like the outdoors, and honestly, and I'm speaking honestly here, you might be kind of disappointed. If NFL teams and NBA games and Major League Baseball games are a big part of your life, or you like to go to concerts, where big bands come, you might be disappointed here. We don't have any Major League teams here. We're not gonna get big bands like U2 or Coldplay or John Bon Jovi. They're not gonna come to Boise. What we do have is elk, deer, trout, and mountains. And so if you like mountain biking or cutting down your own Christmas tree, then you'll fit right in here. But if you're looking more for the big city type stuff to do, then you might be disappointed. And finally, number 10, you might not be ready to move to Idaho if you thought that she was a good candidate.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning.
I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country.
Now, to be honest, I don't think I've been happier on an election night than I was on November 5th. I was telling some people the other day that I don't remember a time when I've been happier about our country than now. I think we're finally back on the right track and headed in the right direction. And Idaho agrees with me. 65% of the people voted for Donald Trump. 30% voted for Kamala Harris, 1.5% voted for RFK, and then the other 1% or so voted for a number of candidates that I've never heard of. Here's a map of all the counties that Trump won in the election. I mean, it's pretty amazing. If there ever was an argument for the Electoral College, I think there it is. I mean, look at that map. Trump literally won something like 90% of all the counties in the United States of America. And Idaho, along with the rest of the majority of the country, said enough is enough. We're tired of hearing that Trump is a fascist, he's Hitler, he's a misogynist, he's gonna lock people up, he's gonna kill people. Idaho said, enough is enough. We want to get the country back on the right track. So Idaho, along with the majority of the country, voted for Donald Trump in spite of all the rhetoric that we heard in the media. And to that I say, good for Idaho and good for America. So those are my 10 items. Let me know in the comments if you think that I'm crazy or if I forgot something. As always, reach out to me if you have any questions. You can call, text, or email me. And if you appreciate the hard work that I put into these videos, be sure to subscribe so you can see the videos as I publish them. See you guys.